Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we are recording at night time, and you can see behind us the beautiful Sir Leo Hillshire Bridge, and Sir Leo is kindly agreed to do us a YouTube. And with us tonight we have Greg Thompson, State Manager of UDO Bank, Jane Woodland, currently retired, would that be the best word?
Part-time retiree, part-time HR consultant.
Exactly right, but a great supporter and moral support to me and helper. And lastly but not least, Jana Nelson, and also a supporter. Her father built through together, how would you put that? The pools, the fountains.
Yeah, Polynesian Centre.
Yes. And so we've got a mixture of people talking about the three people that were critical in seeing the post-Expo legacy so well represented in Brisbane. We have Stefan and the Sky Needle, we have Sally Ann and her vision when she had the council acquire all those art pieces, and also the river stage that was built, and really the most important thing was the acquisition of the Japanese garden that was transferred out to Mount Cootha. And then lastly was the people I find are really the most generous and the most magnanimous were Frank and Myra Pitt, who donated the last $30,000 that got the total of $250,000 that was needed by Councillor David Hinchcliffe in his quest to save the pagoda. And I just, even to this day, I just think it is such a magnanimous and generous act that Frank and Myra did for the city. And John McGregor is doing a YouTube interview with them next Wednesday, I believe. So I just we're just having a casual conversation, and in the first instance I really wanted to ask Greg, just what are your thoughts about the legacy in Brisbane in relation to, you weren't in Brisbane at the time, you've come up to Brisbane since, you've got a senior position, you're dealing with international people all the time. What's your thoughts about Expo and the legacy that it's left behind in Brisbane?
The great thing about Expo and the legacy that I have experienced myself is when I have a lot of, I work with United Overseas Bank Singapore. It's one of the biggest banks in Asia, and we quite often have visitors coming through, and we would take them down South Bank, take them to the pagoda. We would go out to Mount Cootha and show them, the gardens, and they're absolutely blown away by what they see. But as an outsider, until I sort of spoke to Peter in a lot more depth about Expo and everything that was going on with Expo, I didn't quite understand that the pagoda came from Expo, or the bamboo gardens came from Expo. It was just a wonderful place to take visitors that were coming into Australia that I knew of. They might have been business people, or they might have been friends, and it was a great place to take them, and we loved taking them there. I must have been there in the last 10 years. We'd go there 5 times a year with different families that have come to visit us.
And it is amazing, isn't it, that Sally Ann saw the opportunity, Ross McKinnon saw the opportunity, and we were blessed with the foresight of actually securing it. And there are signs galore, but they're brass plaques and they don't stand out. I know they're there because of this passion I seem to have developed. I've gone out and sourced them and have looked at them, and done some really good YouTubes there with Greg, who's just a font of useful information about all things Expo. And yeah, you're right, and that's one thing that I've spoken to Lord Mayor Graham Quirk about, was that maybe the signage needs to be revisited. And Jane, what are your thoughts about the Expo legacy?
People of our generation repeatedly say to me, Expo was when Brisbane grew up. It went from a hick country town to an internationally known city. We grew up in terms of a whole range of things. Our art, our shopping hours and so on. The fact that Expo was right in the city, directly opposite the CBD, gave Brisbane a huge profile, which we were able to capitalise on at that time. And I wonder about generations now, if they understand what it delivered to Brisbane, and I'm hoping that, you know, through the anniversary next year, maybe younger people will become more aware of what this event did to help Brisbane grow up, if you like. Like, I was speaking to my son this evening, and he knew exactly what the Stefan Needle was, but had no idea where it had come from, or what its function was, or why anyone would want to keep it after Expo. So I think we've got a lot of work to do in educating younger people and bringing them along on this journey to celebrate and revisit Expo.
Although I bet if he knew that Stefan had sacrificed his home on Service Paradise, in his mind where all the chickies are, he would immediately see the sacrifice.
He would not see the rationale.
He would not see that.
He's a visionary though, he's great.
Stefan's great, yes.
Yeah. And were you aware that that Sky Needle was originally destined to become part of Tokyo's Disneyland?
Yeah, I know. It's one of the stories Peter that Stefan told Peter Harvey, and it's also it's well documented, I think. I mean, I'm hoping that, in fact, I know Stefan's already given me a promise that, you know, what I'm hoping that out of that interview, when John and I interview him, is that we can get better details. I mean, what was his mindset when he decided to get that? I mean, it was more than just obviously, you know, I'll get a Sky Needle, and I mean, or I'll promote. What's his range of hairdressing products called? Should know that, shouldn't I? Haven't done enough research, all right?
What was his trademark? Coloured rainbows.
Yes, but he said that in one of the interviews that he wanted to put the rainbow up there and make it more colourful, which he did do. But and then when it burnt, he made even a bigger job out of it. So just moving on, as my son distracted me. Gianna, so your father had a role in Expo. I mean, uniquely in this, you know, up here, and as we look at the Celia Horseshoe Bridge, your father actually had a role. And so, what were your thoughts, and what are your thoughts about how Expo, what legacy it's left behind?
I'm proud that my father was very involved in it. He had so many wonderful stories. I remember getting my weekly phone call from him, and he would be telling me how he was going with the buildings and about the issues with the unions and everything else that was going on, and not that I understood much I think I wasn't even 8 years old at the time, but he was very into explaining it and how proud he was. And when we'd come up for holidays, he would pull out the photo album and he'd be showing us lots of pictures and just constantly bragging.
Of which only, 3 or 4 are left, the photos, because you've given us
Yes, he has got more. He keeps saying he'll dig them out.
Oh.
He now wants all the ones off YouTube so that he can put them into his photo albums. So he's cheating a little bit. But yeah, he was very proud, and he still uses it. He's just developed a website at the moment because he still builds pools, and he wants to put some of that stuff on there so that they can see where he's come from, because he was only just starting out on his own back then. So he was just so excited that he actually got the tender for it to do it.
Great way to start.
It's still a great draw card for anybody that's visiting, you know, Brisbane, from whether it's be interstate or overseas. You know, going down to that area and seeing it all. Like they all absolutely love it, particularly the Asians. The Asians absolutely adore it.
Well, they certainly like the pagoda. I mean, John, when he goes down on a Sunday, and he's multilingual, I wouldn't have enough arms and legs, fingers and toes to be able to count the number of languages you must know, at least a snippet of. And, you know, they're just constantly streaming through, and it's really amazed me as to just how much of a tourist attraction that it has become.
It's also a bit of a backyard for a lot of Brisbane people.
Oh, Southbank is, yeah.
You go down there on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon in, you know, sort of spring or summer or autumn, and it's just, you know, people having picnics, all the families there, grandma, grandpa, mum and dad, plus the kids and little babies. They're having an absolute ball.
And that all parks in Brisbane have developed that, probably as a result, because they've had such good experiences at Southbank. I mean, the parks 20 years ago didn't have those sophisticated children's areas, and they've sort of developed and spread. And I know the Lord Mayor's got the plan to roll out 24, I think, fully accessible for disabled people play areas throughout the whole of Brisbane. I think the next one that he's rolling out is, I think, is going into Roma Street. I could be wrong. I'm really up to date on that. It's not my area of interest as such. But it all came as a result of, you know, Expo into South Bank version 1, South Bank version 2, and I don't know quite just what version of South Bank we're currently up, but it is like a good theme park. It's currently, you know, rebirthed and currently reviewed, but thank goodness the pagoda has remained as a constant throughout all of that. And I think it's actually taken on even more of an emphasis, because there was that university building behind it, and now that it's gone, it stands there as more of an outstanding one. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I think that that is a useful insight into the role of the way the Legacy Expo has helped Queensland, and also as a suitable marker to the wonderful work of Frank and Myra Pitt, Steve Ackery, Stefan, and also Sally Ann. And with that, I'll just encourage everyone to have a look at all the YouTubes on Foundation Expo 88. And again, good night. Thank you.